over the past 2 years, I've been wondering what to do with the narrow gauge line. The narrow gauge line had an intention of having some kind of sweepy romantic nature that kind of goes into a tunnel, comes out, goes up this hill, and yeah, you have this ideal that it goes then onto a top layout. I realised very quickly that it's something that didn't work. It would get stuck down there. It's very hard to model. The only place I could get in to access it was there, through going under there. It wasn't fun. And I've realised over time, less is more. And in this layout, I tried to put far too much on the layout. You can see over here, I've got my station, an area that I'm happy with that's building up gradually. I'm working on bits that interest me as I go. Whereas over here, I've got the stagnant area of the cardboard mountains, which have been there since day one, to visualise hills or whatever. This looks nice, looks really, really nice. I've always liked the look of it, but it's going. I'm going to remove all of it, take this all away, and the scenic breaks can basically end here. That'll go across. I don't need all this. This could stay, but I also want to put a window up here and redo these wonky, wobbly boards, because the other side, I did a good job. They're nice and flat. I'd like to do all this again sometime. So all these boards will be coming up, and I'll be getting a window in there, and we'll work out what to do with this side. At the moment, I'm not too concerned. It's just the passing, well, part of the loop. You know, I put a bit of track back there. I never use it. I'm far from interested in using it. Doesn't even run that well where it comes under here. And this is all great fun, but ultimately I have more fun running simple lines coming through here, having my locos doing their thing. So on this episode, I'm going to be removing this for starters, and then we'll be putting some points in, and then we'll move on to some other areas, that touching up areas, finishing bits off, and talk about topics that interest me, that might interest you. That's the track removed. And I managed to put a couple of rusty pins in my fingers a few times, so not going too bad. So I'm just going to remove it to here for now. There's no need to remove this just yet. I can come to that. It still looks nice, so I feel like let's leave it there for a few days longer. So remove all this so then I can get to the radiuses on the other side if I need to. And I'll have a nice canvas here to work with. Don't know how I'm going to get it all off. I'm going to have to be quite abusive with it, and we'll go from there. It's quite fun. So now it's clear. I can see where the line's going to go. Things have been pulled around. Some track's been damaged. I've got the original set track that I put around here. That's great. I'm not going to be doing much with this apart from connecting it up, so then I can run locos round. Obviously, this is my mess and my 09 track that I'm going to keep for a project that's coming up. I'm looking forward to talking to you about. The narrow gauge is not over, for those that are a bit upset by seeing what they saw. With this all clear, as you can see, it looks a bit messy. And when you're trying to think, well, what am I working with? Having this doesn't really help me. So what I want to do is using a can of my favourite Hornby magazine grey. I'm first of all going to paint up this grey again, try and avoid that station, just to make it look nice when you're looking at it, as well as all of this, apart from the cork that's already down, because we're going to keep that. And then we can start laying the cork and it will just look nice. So let's do that. We have our 2 points here. These are medium radius points by Peco. They're the normal insul frog ones as well. So one less thing to worry about on wiring. Wiring isn't something I enjoy doing, so we will avoid it at all cost. What I'm going to do, so I've got my trusty pencil, I'm going to make a mark where these bits are, just so I've got that nice reference. So that's where the point ends. I'm going to draw around it. You can get the picture. So I want to put cork over the grey areas where the track's going to be. And I'll run that down here. And that'll be there. So we run the cork over here, drawing it up a little bit, just here. And go from there on this part here. Bring that across there. I'm going to stick the parts down with copy decks. The reason I'm using copy decks is because copy decks is very rubbery. So if I had to, I can peel all this up. Even when I stick the track down, this track's held down with copy decks at the moment. If I had to, I can peel it off, okay? See, shouldn't do that. It doesn't stick back down perfectly afterwards, but you know, it's nice. Quite like it, it's quite friendly. So what we'll do is we'll figure out where the cork is going, like I've said before. Trim out some pieces and stick them in place. One of the nice things about copy decks is you can paint it on the surface you're doing, let that dry for a bit, do the other surface, that one doesn't take, you can do the other surface as well. You need a little bit of patience when you do it. So yeah, start with this. You don't have to put too much on. Keep it thin. My loft's a bit cold, so it will take a lot longer than if I was doing this in the summer. Since Groot's accident, he hasn't been in the loft. You can see his shaved areas there, bless him. You alright, buddy? Yeah, I was taking the opportunity to give him a fuss. But yeah, he's fighting fit now. Got hit by a car, survived, and off he goes. Right, I'll let that go dry and then I'll stick it together. It's been quite some time and my cold loft isn't making it dry quickly. So I'm actually going to just stick it in place and see what happens. When both of them actually dry and you stick it together, where you put it, it stays. But this is snugged up quite nicely. So it has done something. Normally when you just put it on, it doesn't always stick down. So that's nice. So we'll do the other one and I'll come back to you with all the bits done. What is it, buddy? What is it? What have you seen? What is it, mate? Can you spell the copy decks? No? portals effectively, you've got the bridge. I'm going to only use set track, so I'm going to run a little bit more cork just to here, and that's going to end here, because I haven't decided exactly what's going to happen with this area, because some of these boards are going to come up and get changed as I'm going to get the window installed. So I have these last little bits, and then we get on with installing our points. It's all glued in place, all solid. It's the next day. It's all in there. It's not going to move. I'm happy with that. Get to this area. As you can see, we filled in that little gap there for when the 2 points come in there. That drops on there. Okay. That will sit about there, and then we just add a small section just in there. I'm going to use normal fish plates to join up this section here, and then for these ones where we connect that one and that one, I'm going to run insulation fish plates. Insulation sounds right. So insulation fish plates go there. I didn't have any yesterday, but I popped to Tony's trains and picked them up. Say hi, Tony.
Hi, Trish.
Tony, can I have some fish plates, please?
Certainly can. Insulated?
Yes, that's a good question. I like insulated. I'm doing my points at the moment.
Double O gauge, code 100?
Yes, exactly that.
Certainly, no problem. There we go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's get it all fitted and yeah, go from there. It's always enjoyable to put the track back together. These are the Peco fish plates. They call them rail joiners. I guess that's what they should be called. Who knows? Do they look like fish? Is that why the ones on the railways that join the tracks are called fish plates? Can you tell me in the comments why they were called fish plates? Be interesting. So these are always a bit tight and they can dig into your thumb when you put them on, but from what I understand, they'll give good conductivity because the connection is really good. And also they're a little bit more minimal than the Hornby ones, which I have been using. Hornby ones are very easy to assemble, feel quite nice, but the Peco ones, they seem to be a little bit tighter on fit, so a bit more tricky to work with. So if you're just getting into this, the Hornby ones I feel are nice and easy to work with, but the Peco ones, I think they're what I learned on the last episode, that everything sits a bit straighter. See, getting this one on here, there we go, that's in place there. Getting this one on here was tricky, but it's, you know, it's really got a good purchase. That's all right there. For the next step, two things have to happen. I need to have the small bit of track there, the long bit of track there. It's always easier to have like this piece ready to go. So what we'll do is I'll cut out a piece for here, cut out a piece for here, and try and get the lengths about right. I'll cut them with my Xeron cutters. These cutters are very handy. You can pick them up from most model railway shops, but these cut the nickel silver really nicely. And yeah, it's good. You've got options of using, let's say, a rotary tool like a Dremel, or you can use these. The Dremel is quite nice because it's quick to do the work and clean it up nicely with one tool, whereas with these I trim with it, but then I get my little file out and I clean up the ends. I'll start with this short piece. I've already got this piece from my flexi track, obviously checking it. That I have got some Hornby sections, which is just set track or their long lengths. An example of when you trim these, you can see that's what you get left over with. So with your cutters, cut it flush, okay, and that trims it very nicely. And we just trim the other one, okay, that's off there, and that comes out quite nicely. If you want to, you can then file them a little bit. What I do is I poke the ends up a little bit, and you have a bit of excess to play with. We need a little bit of room for when the fish plates go on. It's quite important. So we'll now trim the length. So we know that we want this about here, based on where our corking is. So we'll have a little glance at it. If you want to make a mark, and you're not sure if you want to trim it by eyeballing it here, my view is get a pen. You can make a mark on the track. Cut it oversize. So at the moment that's about level with there. My tip's hanging off this, but still leaves a mark. So you see there, little mark there. And then you can make a judgment to do the other side like that, if you can get to it. So that would be something like there. And all I'll do is I'll trim it. Bear in mind you're going to go through the plastic on this cut. Hold on to it. And then you can pull that sleeper over. We actually can only use 3 sleepers on this, but we won't destroy it. So that's those 2 done. Trim off the sleeper. Slide that one off. We now have our inserts effectively, and that drops in there. One looks too short that way. Let's make sure this is all sitting right. That looks about right actually. We can flip it around, see if the other way around fits better. I think the other way was better. So I'll file up the ends quickly, clean them up, and then we'll work on our longer piece. Get the next one done. Make sure we cut it the right way around, otherwise one side's not so nice. Right, that's our piece done. The fish plate that's on here, it's called the point wedding there. One thing I learnt with the point wedding is you can't lean on it. I have to re-glue some bits before we do it again. Well, I've got to add the rest of the sections to this anyway. So I take out the old fish plate because I've had paint in it and stuff like that. I'd rather go in fresh and not have to take this all apart. So I'll place some bits on the track. You know, if we have to, we can put droppers on some of these areas to get power to the track a bit better. Okay, so I've got some on there, and now I'll just slide it in just like the other one. Okay, so that's now in place. Slide my sleepers down, try and straighten them off. So the track I'm using is code 100. You've got options. Obviously what you can run is code 75, which looks a little bit more scale. The sleepers are kind of a slightly different shape. And yeah, people like to do them. But I understand with code 75, with the track being a bit smaller, you can't run like really old locos on it, unless you do some modifications to the wheels. So I've stuck to this so I can run my old locos. So on this bit of track going here, I'll run my non-insulated rail joiners. On this, non-insulated, but on these 2, insulated. I'm running the insulated track joiners on. I'm trying to work out where I'm doing it. I think just between these 2. So when the loco comes up here, yeah, it gets power then from the next one that's coming in, because it should be on the same circuit. So that should work. I always struggle with this kind of stuff. My dad's an expert, and so is my brother. That's where I'm not an expert in any way on this stuff. So yeah, I'll crack on with this and yeah, get it together. The insulated rail joiners, it says here, made out of nylon. You just want a couple of these to begin with anyway. Just snip them out. They're clear. It's quite obvious what you've got when you start looking at the packet. Okay. I just need to understand what I need. So I understand when I put this insulator in here, when I flick the point and the power changes, obviously this bit be fine, but when it's here, this frog becomes powered with this side, so I don't want this to short out with the track on the other side. So I understand I need to put, my shaky hands getting involved there, the insulator on both of them, so then the system doesn't short out. This is what I understand anyway. And then I'll do the same on these two, and then I put everything together and it should be okay. That's the idea. Let me know if I'm wrong. This is something that I've always struggled with, but we'll do the test and see what happens. Now I've got to connect up all four. I'll turn the camera so you can see it a bit better. Without destroying any more of the point rodding, you need to start all four of these somehow. A little bit tricky. Let's then get these two, that outer one. Looks like we made it. Remember when you put your track together, because we're doing this in the winter, in the summer all these gaps will close up. So on this insulated one, I push that up and it's actually got a gap there. I've got like a 1mm gap there. I could do with one here. Just pull them apart until we're kind of happy. And that's looking alright, and it's the same for the other end. For those that haven't done this before, don't be scared. You've just watched me have a go and possibly fail. Right, so that's together. And the simple, really easy bit of just adding some tracking down here and down here to then connect up to the set track that was there before, as well as this one up here. We're going to keep it simple, not overthink it, run some down there, and yeah, probably fast forward through that bit. To hold it down, with that all there, I'm just going to put a little bit of copy decks under various points, well, various areas. Oh. Try to avoid putting it on top of the track. Now just hold it in place, because a lot of the work that's going to be holding it in place is the ballast. Work my way along, and then once this is dried, I'll put too much on there. Once this is dried, I can then work on the next section. That's it, buddy, you can do it. Come on, don't look down. Keep coming. That's it. Good boy. Is that good? Is it? Aww. This is the area which I will be having all the set track. All this will be going. I've started putting up the track here so I can get the set track to come and curve around to the right points. These 2 points, talking about points, are the Hornby Express points. And all my overrows like to stop on it because of this massive thing there. So I'm just going to get rid of those 2 express points. Maybe there's a third one there, but for some reason they didn't have any trouble on that one. But these come out and I'll just run up some set track here and I'll show you when it's done. Need to chisel off all the ballast and I'll just use some form of scraper for that. So that's all clear. I can add in just some straight lengths now to connect to my curves, which will connect to my straights that go up here. So that should be good. I'm looking forward to showing you. So the track is all connected up now. Working its way around, and then we have the set track connecting to the new sections that are over here. These won't be permanent. These are going to be sitting here, not glued down, a couple of pins in the set track, and these bits are free to kind of move around if they need to. Like I've said before, focusing on my hand, this is all going to be going. So now I have track that won't be stopping as I'm running the trains around. Made marks where the bridge will go, so that will sit there over the top there. Like so. And I'm not sure what to do with this. I'm thinking about having a line coming out here and making it rusty and it stopping, or I'm not really sure. I need to get maybe a little bit of advice off a few people. Or do we just have bushes growing inside it? You know, it's overgrown, so we have banking coming down here and then bushes kind of growing in the gap down here, because it used to be used but isn't anymore. So yeah, throw me some comments and the suggestions, or throw me some suggestions in the comments and we'll go from there. I'm just gluing the track down with Copydex. Again, it's a rubberized glue, so you can peel it off later on. It's easy. I've been finding that with these. I actually relaid this bit of corking, as you can see here. There's a lot of the old unpainted area showing. Knows where you've come from then when you've kind of worked on these things. Added some cork on the other side. It was just to make the curve nice to the set track there, and actually worked out really nicely for here. On these areas here I've got gaps, so I'm going to put some sleepers in there. So the ones that normally you chop off and you don't use, that's the ones we'll be using. What I do is, if you can see, hopefully you can see, I'll try and focus on it. So I'm using my phone to do a lot of my filming at the moment. Makes things a bit easier when I'm up in the loft. And I'll trim off the chairs, okay. Got some flush cutters to make things easy. You can use a knife, but from the flush cuts, if they're nice and sharp, they're good. So now it's flush. There you go. See my mucky hands as well. That's that. Then what I do, just to neaten things up, I trim off the webbing. So without damaging my point rodding, I want to slide this one under, and I'm going to slide under all the way because I want it to go to the other side, to go in the middle here. That's held down quite well, so I don't need to put any glue on that one. And I do the next one, and it's simply a case of trimming and pushing it in place, so then it's not got that big gap anymore. That one hits that one, so all we do is we get that one back out. Actually, whilst it's sticking there, we're going to trim it a bit shorter. We're not going to miss that. That goes in here. So that's our new one here, sitting about right. And then there's that new one there which is touching onto it, but ultimately once we've got the ballast on it, it will be fine. I'll put the other ones in. I've got various places over here. I've got to put quite a few in there. Got one to go in there, and then some to go underneath the bridge. Everything's out of focus at the moment. I'll go in there. I've used Copydex to hold some of these in, and when that dries, I'll hold it snug, so when I'm doing ballasting they won't move around, because that's what I found in the past. When you're trying to do that, they can move into the other side. Again, you know, I've glued the track down as well, because I don't want the track to be lifting up. So I've got pins in either here, or I've got Copydex under these bits. Once it gets ballasted as well, that's going to be holding it down. That's a type of adhesive. So here you can see I've got my weight on here with the wood. You can see the drying Copydex there. That means that bit of track won't move. You'll be able to see the nice run that I've gained from removing the narrow gauge line. I'm looking forward to doing the next stage, which will be putting some dropper wires on the layout, just to give power to the DCC that I've lost. So that'll be coming in here, and then I've got the DC line which is here, but I'm going to put some dropper wires on it anyway, because we can tap onto it later on. And then this is DCC as well, but this already has wires on further up here, so I don't need to do that. But I could always add a bus on the curve going around there, so it's out of sight. From the track that I've added in, I've actually got some solder joints left over from here, so if I clean them up I can solder straight onto them. got some wire here. It's 16 by 0.2 wire, which means you've got 16 strands of 0.2 wire, and that is basically something that's been more than capable of handling the drop downs going to the DCC controller. I'll just get my strippers here. You've got a set of teeth, a grabber to hold on to it, and we simply come down. I always start with a slightly large one and I strip, and we do the same for this one. Try and make it the same amount. It pulls apart. There were loads of strippers out there, wire strippers that is, and you'll use them to strip your wire. So I give them a twist after doing it. It stops the strands going all over the place when you're trying to solder. I'll tin them, I'll bring them up, pick them around, solder them on with the back on the back side of it, the rail, and then the red's normally towards the front of me. It means that when I work on either that side of the layout or this side, everything's wired the same way. Of course, you might have things looping around all over the place. You then need to keep track of where your red and black are. So I'll solder them on with my soldering iron, and we'll go from there. The wire's a bit long, so I'm going to snip it back to what I need. What I'm going to try and do is do a very minimal soldering connection, or soldered connection. Just reapply a little bit there because it looks a bit bare. Just going to remove the old bit of wire that was on the track. And on the other side, that's good. In that moment, so that's just sitting on there. I can then solder that in place, and then I can pull down on it. So you can't really see me solder here, but I always like to add a little bit more because you get a bit of flux from that. So that is on there. You can normally see when you've got a good joint. Put a little bit of solder on the end of there. Yeah, that's connected. And we do the same with the other side. So very minimal. It will get covered up by the ballast. And really, apart from the few people that watch the channel, I'll be the only one that really notices that the wire is there. So again, very minimal. That's in place there. I'll give it a little squash to really make it drop down. Do the same for this one. So drop the wire in, push down on that. That's still nicely connected. A minimal connection. Another view you can see here, very small. I've seen other people use brass wire and drop it down, so a piece that's, let's say, 0.4 of a millimeter, you solder it on, drop it down, and there it is. Even more minimal, but that's on an N gauge layout. I feel this would be fine. Everything is installed. The copy decks is almost dry. And I'm doing a test run with all 3 lines, which I've all converted to DCC. This will mean that my DC running isn't going to continue for a little while, but I can always change wires back if I need to. But it's quite simple. The locos are going over straight bits. They'll be absolutely fine. Pretty happy with all this. No stop starting, no shorting. It's all very good. The next step is to finish off the point rodding that I did before. So I'll come across here and do that one. And then we have one that's over here. You saw my last episode, me enjoying doing that. But I'll go and do that now and show you it all fitted in. The point rodding is done. Got there, and then you've got this one, just here. Comes across there. I'm sure it's not perfect. I'm not too worried about that. The fact is you can see point rodding coming to the point, and there's a mechanism there. The next thing to do is make sure that my, even though everything's stuck down now, with the points open, which I've already done, I want to transfer my loco from this side to that side without anything shorting, which it shouldn't do because of the way that we've done it. I've got my gauge master, Prodigy. I like to get the more fancy one sometime because I had a little go of it at the NEC, and when I had to go at the Fairly Good Idea layout, and you've got all the other accessories that you can just press a button, go and control the accessories really quickly, nice and easily. But watching this lovely logo coming through here, absolutely no trouble, nothing shorting out, absolutely fine. Which is what I want to be able to use for my switching back loop, to then take locos back over here if you need to. So that's something that interests me a lot. Next step is this backscene here. I want to put a piece of wood on there, which will take up this gap, so this bit of wood will get squashed back, and then it will come up high. Not crazy high if I come back here. So my backscene finishes here, so I'm going to finish that about there, and it will be rocks eventually. So I need to get a piece of wood roughly the right size and put it in place, and then yeah, we can start adding some rocks to it. I've got a piece of wood which I'll be screwing in place. That will sit here. You can actually see the bowing of the old boards that I have here. These are very old now. I've had them since I started playing with the layout like 7 years ago, and nothing ever happened with it really. So when I screw this on, it will level everything off, but if not, bend this a little bit. And what I'm also going to add to start off the back scene is I'm going to screw a piece of wood onto the back of this, and then put some kind of cardboard plasticky sheets up to the height that I want, which we can then stick all of our rocks on, so then we have a nice rocky back scene going across this bit. I'll get on with that, and yeah, we'll talk about it afterwards. All up in place, put a little wedge in here just to kind of hold it in place, and then they're all stuck together there. My rocks are going to be coming all the way up, and for the bit that isn't done, maybe I'll paint it a light blue colour or stick one. I've got a back scene that I could use if I wanted to, but I have that ambition to bring the rocks right up so it's, you know, mighty high. We have bushes and shrubbery all on the top. Bit of view there, yeah, so shrubbery will be at the top, the rocks will be growing up, and at Bewdley where the station is, there's some nice, it looks like, is it ironstone, or is it sandstone, don't know, but I'm going to try and mimic that. Well, I'll try anyway. Okay, you get the gist. I'll get on with making some plaster moulds and we'll stick some bits in place. Come down into the kitchen, and I've got my rock moulds. This is like small rock moulds, and then my main one, which I think I'll use a lot of to build up the side stone structure. Got my pot to mix everything in, got some water, and the plaster of Paris from Hobbycraft. Don't know if I've got enough to do everything I need to do, but we can start by doing something. It says on here that you need to use 2 parts of powder to 1 part water, and basically we mix it together and we use it. Once we get it in here, we can then tap it, get rid of any bubbles. It dries pretty quickly, pop it out, do the next one. To do my parts, I'll do up to 200 millilitres of the powder. Well, I don't know how far it's going to go. I don't want to make too much and have to waste it. that's at 200 millilitres. And then it says to do 1 part water. So we'll see how well that works out. If I can pour. Okay, well I've made a mess, but that's guaranteed with all this kind of stuff. And then we just mix it together. It says in the plaster of Paris here, it takes 1 to 2 days to thoroughly dry. But it says, what does it say? Is it like 1 hour for it to go set? I was thinking more like 20 minutes, but I guess we do a pour every hour. Go from there. But looking at this, I think we've got most of it all mixed together. Okay, so what I've found in the past is you need to pop these up a little bit. So I might have to get some kitchen utensils to balance this up. Get a wooden spoon, sit under here. Yeah, something about that. We'll soon see when we start pouring it in how level it is. Just start pouring in. It seems very runny, so you think, well, this isn't going to work. It's never going to go hard. But I've done this a couple of times before and it worked. At the moment it's a bit more towards here. I'll actually swap. Go to this one. I encourage some bits to go forward. Probably afford to put a little bit more in. I think we're okay. The excess bits that will spew over, we can crack them off, it doesn't matter. And then whilst we're here, I thought we'd use the small one. It's all wonky and out of shape. I think it doesn't really matter too much. Let's see what we get out of it. It's so out of shape, kind of pooling more towards the middle. It will be what it will be, won't it? You can just let it dry, crack it all apart, see what happens, and redo some more. Okay, let that dry and we'll come back in a bit. Hey Rocket, you taking over, keeping an eye on things? Yeah? This is Rocket, this is Groots Brother. He has something fluffy on his face. He's a good lad. Aren't you? So with this, you just have to be careful you don't crack it in half. You just work your edges and it comes out. There's no guarantee that I'm not going to break it in half when I try and get this last bit out. Let's have a look. There we are. Reasonably clean mould, there's only a tiny bit left in there. And that's the rock work. So I'm going to do lots and lots of these. It's going to take a bit of time, do some each day, and then we'll get on with sticking them up on the layout. I've managed to mould a number of small mouldings, as well as the larger ones, and I'm going to have effectively a wall that comes up to here. And I want to build these kind of 3 high. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to finish up, how it's going to look. I want to use some plaster of Paris to kind of join up gaps and things like that, but I also don't want to have just the same pattern everywhere. So hopefully when I join bits up, I can chisel in and chisel into some of these bits. I will need to build up a small rough, you know, structure up behind it with some card, which would be fine. But before I go and mount these and do that, what I want to do is just use my paint, this is some sample paints, and dust it across the top. So when you get to what would be a skyline, then you don't have, yeah, I guess an abrupt change from this mucky glue line to then what looks like good shrubbery, well, good lots of this. But when I'm going to be filming it, it's going to be like that. But yeah, I'll dust that over the top and we can go from there. This end I haven't worked out, but the rockery, I think, you know, we'll finish up there, because I don't know what's going to be behind it. But then I guess if that's all blue for now, then we can add any other detailing afterwards. So we'll give that a paint up, and then we can look at adding all of these. Before I put all the rocks up in place, because I have painted it, I'm going to use some card. I've got some of this large corrugated card, which I'll create a step, because my idea is to stick it to here, and then on top of that, that then steps back slightly, and then from there I want to be able to lean on something which is then at the top, then we're left with that little blue layer at the top. So I have to work out roughly if that then comes to here at an angle, because I want it to be slightly angled, to then have this, because I see it as like a big cutting for the railway they've cut through. So with that sitting there, yeah, then that something needs to sit on there. So I can always put something in there to space it up if I need to. I think you get my logic of what I'm trying to do there. So I'm going to use the glue gun, and we can, yeah, stick that in place. I'm going to use the hot glue gun to glue this in place here, and I'm just going to try my best to really see how it all comes out. The idea, like I said before, is we would then stick this one above it, hopefully that balances nicely, and then behind it we have that. So these all look the same, I know, but I think we can chisel it about, make it look a bit different if we need to. It's all going to get painted. I'm going to add in pieces, and we can just try our best really with this one. I've got all these other little pieces, so if I have to, I can glue bits over the top, you know, to start kind of stopping that uniform look. So we'll start with this, and we'll see if something like this can make it look better. After talking to a few people, I realised this is a bit tall in proportion to everything else going on. Got pointed out to me quite nicely by a few. Obviously there is a cutting. That would have been a big cutting. You know, the land wouldn't look like that. So it does lean back, it's a slight slant, but what I'm going to do, kind of where the tops of these are, knock out the pieces, try and make it look a bit nicer, so then I can blend it in over there and kind of maybe bring it down to that level, possibly, I don't know. But let's have a go and yeah, go from there. Okay, so I brought it down to 2 layers of that rock, run it across. It takes a while to dry in the loft because, I don't know, it's like 1 degree up here. So I've got my little heater trying to dry all the sections. I don't touch it because it's all pretty soft with the polyfiller that I mixed with water and some PVA glue to then stick it up here. Any smooth bits like I've got here, I'm gonna scratch them up later on to give them some texture and go from there. I've already done it with some areas on here. So that's that. Hopefully you can visualize what I'm trying to do. I'm going to have my fine leaf foliage kind of bits growing out of little sections and tufts. My sky got ruined because I peeled it off. I'm left with the glue marks where, do I get the blue paint out and have another go at it? I don't know. Or do I have kind of like bushes growing up here and just hide it that way? Down here I've added a piece of this plastic type card. This is actually an old trophy for when you come 5th or 3rd at a race. Don't often come first, I'm not very good. I do RC car racing, is my job. I'm a design engineer, but sometimes I race. Don't come first, but that's fine. Using these old trophy boards, they're kind of like this strange plastic, but really structural actually. Obviously this is wobbly here, but I'm going to put some bits up the back here just to make this a bit more rigid. But what I want to do is, where I have this footbridge, or not footbridge, or you know, people could be driving over, I have some bushes growing up here into the distance, you know, you won't see all of that, it will be a bit overgrown. I want to do something with kind of some grassiness coming down, like maybe some rockery on the side, and then we can have some like grass banking at the top. On the top of here, I'd like to get static grass and have little bits growing on the top here. But I'm kind of happy with this. I need to let it dry. I need to let this tiny little heater, it's not a powerful one, I use it to warm my feet from time to time, but yeah, this is gonna try and dry this. That I always find the plaster, it doesn't really absorb much heat because it's, I don't know, it seems to be impervious to heat. You can get it warm, but it takes a lot of effort. It's been about 4 to 5 days and the weather has improved. It's got a bit more moist in the UK. Now the back scene, the rocks, they've dried out. All the bits on it have gone hard, which is fantastic. I'm going to check a few bits over, make sure they're all scratched up. But to be honest, I'm quite happy with it. Even where it's slightly smooth, that'll be okay. Because ultimately I'm going to be adding in bushes and things throughout the whole area. Down here, I have an arrangement of paints that I'm going to play with, and some that I've mixed with some water to create the colours that I want. I want that sandstone colour, which is primarily more this colour. I'm a little bit worried about making this too dark a colour in regards to, you know, it just getting just too deep, and yeah, like I've just painted it with red paint kind of thing. So I've heard about this leopard spotting. I've seen it on the Hornby magazine and various other videos when you look up how to paint rocks. I've got a spare piece here, which I'm going to use just to have a little play with to see how that comes out with the sponge, just touching on in areas. I've got an old tyre sponge from my RC car racing, and I think we'll just put dabs in everywhere. So the idea would be we dab a bit here, so we've got some in there. It's actually quite a lot of the paint was on there. My plan is to
tap it in places. And with it being on here, it's going to drip down a bit. So when that's then held up, it will dribble down. We can go from there. And I think that will be the simple part of it all, really. And then if I really want to, I then go get the darker stuff here. We can do it in other places. And that looks a bit too dark, but I think this will lighten up once it's done. And also I can come back with, if I wanted to, an airbrush or dry brushing the tops of all the bricks, certain colours. But until we play with it, we're never going to know. But let's have a play. In between these two colours is what I want, so hopefully we can blend it all together with some other shades as well. And we'll see how we get on. So I've done my leopard spotting over the top. You'll see there's lots of white bits and creamy bits. We'll let that dry. That's from me using a poly filler mixed with PVA glue. First of all, my mistake was doing this whilst it's kind of 0 up in the loft. It wasn't very warm when I did this. That isn't the reason why this happened. PVA glue is one reason. The other thing is I'm learning poly filler doesn't seem to absorb the colour like the plaster does. Fine, I thought it might do. The other thing that I should have done was just use plaster, as that would have set, even if it was cold, I believe, to stick everything together. Fine, I think I'll do that next time. What I will be doing is getting my paintbrush out and using the raw paint, or the paint which isn't thinned down, is just kind of touching areas. Some areas that I don't get, that's okay. Again, I'll have shrubbery growing up, but you know, at the moment it's not perfect. So we'll let this dry, and then I'll add in hand painted areas and we should be good. Now, I've been touching it in with the paintbrush and going quite undiluted burnt sienna. On camera, yes, it does look dark, and I did talk about it not being too dark, but I'm happy with that. What I'm going to do next is in some of the kind of lighter areas, it's going to knock in some kind of like a darkened down black wash in places, just to create some contourness, so we get rid of some of this patchwork quilty-ness. Inventing words all the time. My next plan after that, I'll be mixing in some of this lighter tone with this, and we'll do a big dry brush over the top, and that should be, yeah, enough to finish that off. And I think once we get the shrubbery in there and repaint the sky, so it keeps getting blurry every time I put my hand over it, it should look good. I'm actually quite happy with it, even though it does still look a mess. I think it doesn't help, like I said, with the sky and the fact that underneath isn't done yet. Put a little bit of this down because it'd be a dominant colour. I didn't need to put a little bit of this in. Prepare them. Let's add the colour in. Just going for something that's lighter. won't use white necessarily because it'll just maybe turn it to pink. Can mix this up. I don't want much of this on the brush, and at the moment I've got far too much. With dry brushing, you get most of it off the brush. And then come along, we just touch the tops of everything and we knock highlights into it. And that feels fine. Start bringing that, all those little edges of rock, which look nice. It's a nice highlight. So as we glance at it, we realise it's rocks, which is all we're trying to emulate here. I'm just doing strokes down because we don't want to highlight bits out underneath because they'd be in shadow normally. So I'll get this done and we'll come back once it's all been done, which will take a little bit of time, and we're not in a rush, so that's okay. Some fine leaf foliage. This stuff's nice, it always looks really good. We'll wedge it in place, stick it in and make it kind of, I don't know, come together. I'm sure we can add in more later, but what I want to do is kind of give this a rough kind of feel, and then once that's done I can kind of focus a bit more on this area. But I think that'll kind of be it for this episode. I've spent so many days just on this one, but yeah, we get the bushes in, see how nice it looks. So this stuff, if it can focus on it, is quite twiggy and it looks really nice. So what all I'll be doing is positioning bits in. For example, a position like here, it could be growing out, which will look really, really nice. Somehow I've got to hold it there, so I might have to try and wedge it in, work out where it's going to go first before I start dumping loads of super glue on it. But also that's a bit long, so you can break it, and then that can then sit in there. But also I've got to hold it there somehow whilst it's drying. That's not something that's going to happen in 2 minutes. So that will position there. So all we do is we get a bit of glue. Got some on a little stick here. Don't want to put too much on. We're going to ruin all our hard work we've done so far on the other bits. But this dries clear anyway. It's just PVA glue. So pop that there. And see, that's there, it's kind of growing out, going down a little bit, go from there. So I'm going to stick bits in here and there and we can have some fun, right? So this is done. I'm actually really happy with it. With a bit of dry brushing, before that a dark wash, adding in some different colours. I think it looks smart. I've got my back border up there, what will be my portals underneath the bridge that they will come out of. Genuinely very happy. I think that will be a wrap for this video. So watch our various locos coming around. I've been DCC chipping various locos. Need to get some more chips so I can do some more chipping. That'd be good. With this done, I'm happy. I thought I would just say hello to anyone that's new to the channel, hello to everyone that's been watching the channel, and a big thank you to all of you who've left comments, who've subscribed, who've become patrons or channel members. All of that is great support and kind of gives me extra motivation, not only to satisfy my own kind of needs and wants. When you know, you look at this, it's, I don't know, it's kind of great. When I look at it, I came into the loft this morning to have a look at it, and I thought, I like that. For some of you, might not be your cup of tea, but that's okay because it's on my layout, so you don't have to stress too much. I'm really happy with what I've got here. I'm not regretting it yet, but in the future I can always change it, can't I? You know, I don't have to keep it how it is, but at the moment I love it. It's kind of more than what I hoped it would look like, so that's cool. It's given me that view of for what could we do in the future. So I'll just do a couple of ending shots of things. But no, big thank you to everyone. Again, like I said, subscribers, commentees, people that hit like, patrons, channel members, thank you. I will see you more next year. Obviously, this is towards the end of the year, so this will be my last video for the year. So watch these beasts coming through. Thanks for the support about Groot. I've had a lot of nice comments from people. He's doing very well. Hopefully he'll avoid cars in the future. For those that didn't know, he got hit. Groot at times pops up into the videos, as you might see, and I always enjoy him being there. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of kind of out with the old and in with the new. I'm really pleased with how it's gone, and I'm looking forward to developing all this section a bit more because I've got lots of ideas, and yeah, looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. Anyway, you take care, you look after yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.